frustrating it is that you are having to pay such a high price just so Boris Johnson gets to play at being Prime Minister. Just so the man who said F business can sit in number 10. Over the last couple of weeks, Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn have set out their plans for investing in schools, hospitals, railways, and everything in between. Build infrastructure, and the jobs, tax receipts, and economic growth will follow. Seems like sound logic, but it's not that straightforward. To spend that much money that quickly, we need shovel-ready projects. We need the skills and the people to make them happen. And we need you to feel confident, to want to invest, safe in the knowledge that the government of the day values you and respects you. Leaving the European Union makes all of that so much more difficult. Already, EU citizens have started to leave us. We know it will only become harder for you to get access to the talent that you need. And we know that business confidence is at its lowest level in 7 years. Both the Conservatives and Labour will have to scramble around for projects to pour money into just to keep their word, regardless of whether they're good projects and a good use of public funds, so that they can stand on stages like this one and give speech after speech, making the right noises about investment and citing big numbers, saying that they want to work with you and give you what you need to thrive. But the truth is this: if you want to get Brexit done or get Brexit sorted, you are not the party of business. In an interview last week, Carolyn asked who the party of business is today. The answer is clear. The Liberal Democrats are the natural party of business. With the Conservatives in the pocket of Nigel Farage and Jeremy Corbyn stuck in the 1970s, we are the only ones standing up for you. Because we believe that any form of Brexit, whether it's hard or soft, blue or red, will be bad for jobs, bad for business, and bad for our public services. Boris Johnson talked of a Brexit boom this morning, but we know it's much more likely to be a Brexit bust. We believe that being part of one of the most successful economic blocs in the world is the best guarantee we can have for our future, for the success of our businesses and for our country. We believe that our best future is as members of the European Union. That's why a Liberal Democrat government will stop Brexit on day one and use the 50 billion and we will use the £50 billion Remain bonus to improve our schools and tackle in-work poverty. And we'll get on with the job of dealing with the obstacles you face. We'll invest £130 billion in infrastructure over 5 years. We'll use that to improve our railways and open up new lines, to reduce how much energy our buildings use. And we'll use it to leverage private investment in renewables, to help us meet our ambitious target of generating 80% of our electricity from renewables within a decade. And we are confident we can stick to our plans for 2 reasons. First, we are backloading our investment so that most of it will happen towards the end of the 5 years, giving us time to get the foundations in place. And second, because we believe that freedom of movement is a good thing. Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn are promising to splash the cash on this or that infrastructure project, but they would also end freedom of movement. Without the European bricklayers, engineers, and builders, they won't be able to build the homes, hospitals, schools, and railways they've promised. We can't build it unless they come. Liberal Democrats are committed to helping small businesses who are the engine of our economy. That's why Liberal Democrats would scrap business rates and replace them with a commercial landowner levy. It will shift the burden from the tenant to the landlord so that we can breathe new life into our high streets. Frankly, we have seen enough promises of reviews of business rates from the Conservatives. It is time for clear action that will give proper help to our small businesses. We will give every adult in England a new £10,000 skills wallet so they can invest in learning throughout their lives. And as part of our radical and credible plan to reach net zero emissions as soon as possible, we will make the UK a global leader in green jobs and technology. A Liberal Democrat government will work with you to open up new opportunities for green growth and to save our planet. We will invest £5 billion in zero carbon projects through the Green Investment Bank. We owe it to our children to do this. We are the last generation that can stop irreversible climate change, and we are running out of time. There is much that government can do, but I'm clear that the business community is absolutely part of the solution. Not least because we need to channel your ideas and entrepreneurialism to take on this huge challenge, as well as the others that we face. And my vision is for a country where business joins forces with government, public services, and civil society to create the kind of society we deserve. So many businesses already take great responsibility for the communities around them. But I know we can do more to encourage others to do the same. So we will introduce a general duty of care for the environment and human rights for all companies and public sector agencies. We will reform fiduciary duty so companies are less bound just by shareholder value, so they can spend more time focusing on the well-being of their employees, the impact they have on the environment, and how they can give back to the communities on whom they rely. And we will ask all UK-listed companies and private companies with more than 250 staff to have at least one employee representative on their boards. That will help rebuild trust between workers and bosses. There is much to be proud of when I think about the strengths of our business community, from its world-leading innovation to its tough resilience in difficult times. And you deserve a government that works to help you thrive, not stifle you. What is on offer to you from the two old, tired parties at this election is a terrible choice. You have a Conservative Party that can't be trusted to respect the rule of law and that is marching in step with Nigel Farage, intent on pursuing a hard Brexit, and a Labour Party that thinks little of property rights and wants to waste yet more time negotiating its own bad Brexit deal. Our country and our business community deserve better than that. That's why the Liberal Democrats will stop Brexit, and I absolutely want you by my side as we build a brighter future for our country together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jo. And now we'll take some questions. I think we've got some media questions to start with, and the first might be from Simon Jack, I think. Simon.
Thanks so much, Simon Jack, BBC News. Your plan to abolish business rates and replace them with a tax on landlords, won't that just feed through to businesses in the form of higher rents? And in your numbers, you say it'll cost over £3 billion in year one, reducing to 700 million over the period. And that is based on the assumption that commercial land values will continue to rise. Isn't that a massive assumption, given the economics of the high street?
Well, thank you very much for the question. And this is an innovative and bold policy that is needed, because let's remember what the issues are that we're trying to solve here. Businesses on the high street have been struggling for many years now, and they find that the business rates can be a crippling cost. And this is in a time when they are already having to deal with footfall falling, competition from online competitors where they aren't having to pay the same type of rates. So I think this is an important change. And clearly, it being borne by landlords, some of that may well be passed on, but we also recognise that it will not all be, and this will provide a significant boost for businesses. And the analysis that we've done, we do obviously make assumptions based on the future economic prospects. And of course, if we were to leave the European Union, then we know that there is much more likely to be a hit to the economy, and the assumptions would then be different. But by protecting that relationship, then we have the best chance of protecting our economy, and with this bold policy, to rescuing our high street and providing real help to businesses, too many of whom are struggling.
Thank you. I think we've got another media question up there.
Jim Pickard, Financial Times. Now, Jo, you say you want a majority Liberal Democrat government. In the hypothetical scenario that that doesn't happen and the Lib Dems are the power brokers, you've also said that you wouldn't deal with Jeremy Corbyn. But is there common ground between you and Labour under a different leader? And what would be the kind of red lines there? Would you accept, for example, the nationalisation of utility companies?
So obviously, in this election, Liberal Democrats are setting out our very clear plans on stopping Brexit and investment to improve people's lives, whether that's huge extra support for parents with more free childcare, or investing in mental health and the climate emergency, tackling that. If we don't win a majority, we will still want to stop Brexit, and we will continue to pursue a people's vote, which we have led the campaign for 3 years. But I am very clear, as I have been today, that neither Boris Johnson or Jeremy Corbyn deserves to be in number 10, and Liberal Democrat votes will not put either of them there. And specifically, you asked about Jeremy Corbyn. Not only does he want to deliver Brexit, but this is a man who has completely failed to tackle anti-Semitism in his party. And it's not a trivial policy difference. It's a fundamental difference of values. And from speaking to people in the Jewish community, the fear that exists about the prospect of Jeremy Corbyn in number 10 makes it clear to me that there is no way that Liberal Democrat votes could put him there. We have in this Parliament that has just ended, as Lib Dems, cooperated across party lines. We're doing so on the Unite to Remain initiative in 60 seats across the country as well. We have cooperated with others where we agree. We will continue to do that, and that would include people within the Labour Party who share our desire to stop Brexit, as well as people within the Plaid Cymru or the SNP, and indeed Conservatives. And we will continue to have that constructive approach to politics. But as I say, for the reasons I've outlined, Jeremy Corbyn will not be put into number 10 by Liberal Democrat votes.
Okay, I think we're ready now to take questions from the audience. So if you put your hands up, and we'll find you a paddle. We'll get through as many as we can in the next 9 minutes. So perhaps if we could start here, please, and then the number 2. So that's number 5 paddle, and then the number 2 paddle, and then we'll move across to this side of the House.
Hi, Jo. Can you just tell me, what do you say to those businesses and employees that actually voted leave?
Well, I respect that people have differences of opinion on this matter. And as Liberal Democrat leader, I'm standing in this election and making sure that people have a choice and that people have the opportunity to choose to remain, because we are still members of the European Union. We were supposed to leave on the 29th of March, we were supposed to leave on the 31st of October, and we're still members of the EU. We can stop Brexit, that is possible. And I appreciate there are some people who disagree with that, and they can make that case, and I recognise that people make that case in good faith. I think one of the things that has happened in recent years is that we've lost the art of disagreeing well. And somebody can take an opposing position to myself on that matter and argue it in very good faith and in all good conscience. And we can disagree in a way that is constructive and respectful. And I think too much, the tone of our political debate has become poisoned with the assumption that if somebody disagrees, they're somehow inherently evil. And I would like us very much to get back to a politics where we discuss things with respect.
Thank you. Over there, please.
Chris Buxton, the British Fluid Power Association again. Thank you for 2 questions and 1 conference. Joe, I fall into that rather unfashionable category of white male, and I hope not too stale, in late middle age. I have voted all my life as what I would like to be known as a one-nation conservative, but I like a lot of what you say. I'm also somewhat disenfranchised by the loss of the political middle ground in this country and the small lurch to the right that we've seen and the huge lurch to the left. And it's that huge lurch to the left that will probably drive me to still vote Conservative rather than yourself, because I'm scared to death of the prospect of a Labour government in this country. And I guess I'm really asking, what does your party's campaign say to people like me who would rather crash out of Europe with no deal? And I'm an ardent, passionate Remainer, but I'd rather crash out of Europe than have a Labour government in this country.
Well, I mean, Chris, you say that you basically are feeling politically homeless in many ways, and I think there's a lot of people in that position. And what I'm saying is that the choice that's on offer, that is no kind of choice to force people to make. And that's why I am standing here. That's why I'm being ambitious, because, you know, I've got 2 young kids. There's, you know, within this room, people have got children, nieces, nephews. Do they not deserve better than a choice between crashing out with a no deal or hard Brexit that becomes no deal in a year's time, or, you know, turning the clock back to the 1970s with failed economic policies coupled with, you know, somebody who won't actually stand up for values of equality? And so my job as Liberal Democrat leader is to say, look, there is a choice. I'm here. We want to stop Brexit. We've got a manifesto which is about, you know, investing and building the brighter future that our country needs, and doing so in a way that, you know, does deal with unfashionable things like worrying about whether, you know, your manifesto costs add up, and, you know, taking more than a casual look at the facts. And, you know, I think there ought to be room for that.
Okay, I think if we could move over to this side, there was a question here, and we're doing quite well. We've got probably time for another 2 or 3 questions after this.
John Reynolds, CTO from Advanced, a great British software company. Now, Advanced are helping transform the productivity of over 20,000 businesses, and proud to be doing so in this country. Putting Brexit to one side, what 3 things would you do next year for the benefit of British business and the people in this room?
Sure. Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is, as already been mentioned, our policy to scrap business rates, which I think will be hugely beneficial. I think the investment in skills is incredibly important. You know, we've got a model where it's sort of assumed that you leave school or maybe university in your late teens or early 20s and that's it. And, you know, the world doesn't work like that. We've got a fantastic opportunity of the technological revolution, but it means the world's moving very quickly and people are going to need to retrain and reskill. So by giving people access to funds at the age of 25, at 40, and again at 55, that will enable people to access that reskilling and that training that they need, that is driven by them according to their passions and desires. And the other thing I would say is increasing our investment in research and development, because, you know, science is at the fundamental core of how we can, as the UK, you know, continue to be a world leader in, you know, industries such as yours and many others. It has been something which has been underinvested in. We do lag behind other countries on R&D, and that needs to change.
Okay, thank you. Gentleman here in the middle of this row, can we get a microphone to him, please? Or maybe he can speak loud enough that we're here. I don't know, but seriously, wait until we've got a microphone. And then I think if this is a reasonably brisk question, we will probably manage one more. Sir.
Joe, yes, I understand what you're trying to say, but can you explain why you're going against the majority that voted to leave Brexit?
So, you know, we're standing for what I believe in. We're a pro-European party. We believe that our best future is in the European Union. And we're giving people that choice. Because what's on offer now, And what's on offer now is actually pretty different to what was talked about in 2016. So we had a vote which, by a fairly narrow margin, came down on one side. And yet, in the intervening 3.5 years, when I've looked in Parliament, even those MPs that support Brexit have found it impossible to agree amongst themselves on what Brexit should actually mean. And so if they can't even agree, 2-3 years after the 2016 vote on what Brexit means, how safe is it to assume that there is a majority in the country for any specific form of Brexit? Because there's plenty of people who voted leave who don't want to leave without a deal, and yet that's what's basically on offer now at the end of 2020. And there's plenty of people who voted leave who are saying they wanted to be in the single market and the customs union. And there's others that say that they would only want to leave if it was a no-deal WTO Brexit. So I genuinely do not believe there is a majority in our country right now for any specific Brexit path. And when all the government analysis says that this will be a hugely damaging step to take for our future prosperity, security, for our public services, then to go ahead on that basis, if we're not sure there's a majority in favour of it, I think that would be irresponsible. So that's why I'm standing on this platform, to give people that choice at this election.
Do we have one more quick question? Let's have this lady towards the front here. She's close to a microphone, so.
Hi, Jo. I'm a fan. One of the things I'm worried about just now, which is slightly coming into the politics arena, is how women's rights are being eroded by the self-identity gender issue. And I just wondered what your views are on that.
Well, I think that equality issues are hugely important. I've literally written a book on gender equality, which was how I spent my couple of years when I was out of Parliament. I think that women's rights are hugely important, and intersectionality is important. So people who are, a woman and happen to be black will experience additional discrimination. So as, lesbian women, similarly, disabled women would be in the same category. And the same is true of people who are trans women or trans men. They face additional discrimination. So I think it is important that we reform the Gender Recognition Act and make that much simpler. And I think it is hugely important that we continue to support equality. And I was very heartened by what Carolyn said earlier about the questions about equality, because I did fight in government for shared parental leave and to introduce gender pay gap reporting, and those are important steps that are already making a difference. And we do need to go further in terms of flexible working, in terms of making sure that that parental pay policies are transparent so that people understand what they are getting into when they apply for a job. There's a lot still to be done on equality, and I think one of the things that has really become apparent in the last couple of years is there's things that I used to think would never be turned back, that the kind of path of equality would always go in one direction, even though there were still battles to be won. And I think what it feels like now is that some of those gains are under threat, and that we shouldn't take for granted equality. I think some of those liberal values are actually now under attack, and we need to fight for them. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all we've got time for. I'm sure we could have gone on longer. I think please join me in thanking Jo Swinson, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, for being with us today at this critical time when she's obviously got lots of other places she'd like to be as well. So, Jo, thank you very much. Thanks again. I think you head off that way. I've got to stay on and introduce someone.
As the Brexit deadline looms, UK companies are now understandably postponing investment until they have greater clarity over the UK's future trading relationship with the EU.
I am convinced that the mutually beneficial China-UK economic cooperation will produce more fruitful outcomes and enjoy brighter prospects.
The money goes where the great scientists are, and the quality will triumph, and the UK will continue to be a place of big science.
We don't like uncertainty, and business doesn't like that. So what we care about most of all is really making sure that we have regulation that can work for us from a technology perspective, that we can have the freedom with the data flows that exist currently, which we hope will continue.
Okay. We continue anyway. I'm afraid, I know this will be a huge disappointment to you, but we have no more political speakers today. I expect a sort of long faces in the audience. We're back now to a business leader, and I've got the pleasure of welcoming in just a moment Ivan Menezes, the CEO of Diageo, to the stage. Diageo, as you all know, are a world leader in beverage manufacturing. It's a great global business with a fantastic perspective on how the UK can continue to be an attractive destination. So it gives me huge pleasure to welcome Ivan Menezes, CEO of Diageo, to the stage. Ivan, he's here.
Thanks, John.
Welcome.
Thank you, John, and I'm delighted to be here at the CBI representing Diageo, one of the UK's major exporters. At a time of some political uncertainty, I'm pleased to bring with me today an optimistic message of confidence in the UK's economic future, and one firmly grounded in my own experience. One of the privileges of having led Diageo over the last 6 years is the vantage point it gives me to reflect on some of the core strengths of the British economy. As a company that's invested over £1.5 billion into the UK over the last few years, we really do believe in Britain. And as someone born outside the UK, who worked outside the UK for many years, and has now made this wonderful country my home, I hope I can speak with a degree of objectivity. I'll start by dealing with Brexit briefly,